to the Metapod, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta, even if some things die, Sean. Some are born anew. And anyways.
Yeah, we'll get into what is dying and what is being born of its ashes, like a very sad-looking phoenix.
Not only was there the biggest Pokemon regional ever over the weekend, which we'll have several things to talk about and several deck lists to show you as part of that, just like we always do with regional and big play Pokemon event recaps. But there was some big news regarding the future of online Pokemon playing, and then also some future, products and stuff that are coming out too. So we got a little bit for everybody here in this podcast. But Sean, how was your week this week?
My week was good. I played a lots of Pokemons.
You did, yeah. You told me before the pod how much Pokemon you played, and that's
No, I went to 4 different locals in the last week. I went to a locals on Monday, so that was the day before that was the night we would have recorded our last pod. Mm-hmm. But when Jake and I talked about it, we were like, it's not a lot going on in the news of Pokemons. And so I went on Monday to a tournament. I went on Thursday to a locals. Technically I went on the Saturday before that, or the Sunday before Monday. So Sunday, Monday.
Sean's basically qualifying for Worlds at this rate.
No, yeah. I wish there was actually local CP. Rip. And then I played again yesterday too. I will say 2 of those were lovely locals leagues, but they were and they were very child focused, right? Like there was just a lot of kids, and so I spent most of the time. I did raffle stomp a couple of children.
Absolutely put the beat down
with my tier 1 deck against their who knows. Even how to describe
Lugia,
it.
Archeops, boxed against, little Timmy's, grass starter deck.
Well, not even little Timmy's binder drop uncommons deck. And I did tell him, and I told the kid, I was like, this is like a really good, and I offered to let him play one of my decks and to teach him that, and he was like, but you know how kids are, they like playing the cards that they like, and I'm like, respect, that's fine. And then, I did a little trading.
Respect, but catch these hands.
Yeah, just a little bit, I got to teach these kids that not everybody's going to go easy on them. This is the real world. Anyways, but I played in 2 events that were adults focused, and we'll show the deck that I played later that I concocted that is actually not trash.
It's really cool.
It's a really
lot
weird
of people
deck.
were interested on it on Twitter, actually.
Yeah. So, and I will say, I have a winning record with that deck. So for what that is worth,
it would be fun to try out at places. Just the abstraction of the cards that you chose. But I feel like one of my favorite, when I used to play a lot more local stuff when I lived in Indianapolis, I had a couple locals that I would go to. I had a pretty serious locals, where we would play and try to get better and try to test things out and stuff, and meta forecasts and things like that. But I also had this locals that was not super serious. It was a bunch of kids, a bunch of dads, parents, just playing and having fun. And that one I really enjoyed going to. Not necessarily because I would win every single game, because I just bring an actual deck, but because I got to teach people things and show them cool combos and trade and things like that. So that's a really cool thing of the Pokemon stuff that I miss.
I will say the funniest thing, one of the kids, I took one of these turns, I was playing a Lugia deck, and you know how actual competitive Pokemon, the turns can sometimes take a long time because you're doing a lot. And the kid was like, is it my turn yet? Are you done? And I'm like, it was a really good grounding moment as to how ridiculous high-level Pokemon play looks to the outsider. But yeah, no, it was definitely a lot of fun.
It's just so funny. But
and I will also say, when I go to these events, especially the ones with a lot of kids, I'm assumed to be a dad. At these events now.
So you're old.
I mean, I don't think, I don't know how I look to other people, to be frank, but I'm old enough. If it's like adults and then like a group of like 7, 8-year-olds, I think it's a fair assumption to be like, oh man, these kids, we just spend so much money on them, right? And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
do spend a
And
lot
Sean's
of
like,
money.
I spend a lot of money on my cats. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and then I'm like going over and teaching the kids how to play, and then I see a little moment when the dad realizes, oh, you're one of them. Ah, I see. It's great.
You're not tied down to any minions, but anyways, I'm glad you had fun, Sean. Sean, you know what we gotta do?
What's that,
Before
Jake?
we get going, we got to get into the 5-star review. Now, I'm actually pulling this one from YouTube, another one from YouTube, because we've gotten a lot of YouTube comments as of late. Michael here left us a 5-star review. Been listening since early 2021. You both have incredible radio voices, and you're an incredible team. I usually listen at work, so it's been off and on recently because it's been hectic. I feel that, man. I really feel that deep down. Something keeps popping in my head, and it's something that Jake is absolutely right about anime subs. I'm not making this up, Sean. I'm not making this up. Finished Summertime Rendering recently. Chainsaw Man Season 1, both in sub. Blows away most dubs, although there's some dubs you really like.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway, consider that my 5-star review.
That's a good review. And I will say, I am watching through Boruto, and I only have 50 episodes of dub left. And then I will have to make the switch, Jake.
Oh, so you're just not going to wait for...
No.
You're just not going to wait for more dub episodes?
No, because they do it every 3 to 4 months. There's a new drop of 10 to 20 episodes. And I'm like, I'm not waiting. Yeah, no, I ain't going to do that.
Just imagine being like a Bleach fan. You have to wait 10 years for them to adapt the next season of the anime. But anyways, we're not an anime podcast as much as I would love for that to be. We're a Pokemon TCG podcast, and we've got some news for you coming in this week. If you're excited for Scarlet and Violet, some new promos are coming in. Koraidon and Moraidon illustration rare promos releasing in Japan. These are going to be through the Pokemon card gym shops in Japan, through like special tournaments and stuff that they're holding with the release of Triple Beat, a Japanese set, on March 10th. Sean, participants will be able to purchase 15 packs of Triple Beat to construct and battle with a deck similar to the pre-releases. So I think this is really, really cool. I don't know.
15 packs.
I should have done.
The packs are only 5 cards in Japan, though, so it makes sense.
Yes. There are 2 stamped cards every participant receives, a rare candy, and 1 of 2 Nemona cards. And then winners get a promo booster pack containing a promo illustration rare of either Miraidon or Koraidon. We will get these cards in our Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes for Scarlet and Violet with the silver borders.
Yes, Jake. And I will say, this is like a small news story, but because we're getting these, for those watching on YouTube, if you're listening, definitely go check out PokeBeach. They have all the goods in terms of what the illustrations are, but specifically, I think it's the Miraidon is the lightning.
Yes, that's the one that you got
one
shown. Yeah.
This is some like vaporwave, like synthwave, like kind of vibes that I am loving.
It's lo-fi.
Is it lo-fi too?
It's pretty much lo-fi.
It's great. It's an excellent look. I am down if this is a whole set of Pokemon would look like this. It's awesome.
I mean, in general, like both of the promos, in my opinion, are beautiful, gorgeous. They're 2 different types of art. Like one is more slick. I don't want to say 3D-esque, but it's got like more depth inside of it, the Miraidon. And then the Koraidon is more like, you know, something that you would, I mean, going back to being an anime podcast, like a manga panel, like a cartoon sketch that just looks really, really good with the trees around it, you know, the Koraidon sleeping. So like 2 really, really, really good promos in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. This is really cool. And just more, you know, evidence of how good the alternate art designs Like, it's amazing what Pokemon is doing. Like, they're gorgeous. Yeah. They've been killing it now for like, going on 2 years since Brilliant
Yeah, I
Stars
mean,
released, right?
even like since they released Dream League, that's kind of when they started these like character rare type esque things. I mean, now it's like illustration rare. They started these extra rares, not necessarily like a super big like a V or a GX or something like that, but an extra little goodie in a set, the trainer gallery type thing. The extra section, which is it's so gorgeous and it's so good. And just the art direction that Pokemon has taken this is put Pokemon on another level in terms of other card games in comparison to other card games.
I will say, you never know that you're living through the golden age of something until it's past.
Exactly.
I really think that like this might be a golden age of Pokemon art. So enjoy it. Enjoy it right now.
Enjoy it while you can, and you can specifically enjoy these cards. Again, they'll be in the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes for Scarlet and Violet, so make sure that you go get those. Those will be $60 each, the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box. It comes with like extra packs and things like that, so
yeah,
that's why it's a little bit more than usual.
Now, speaking of enjoying something, before you have to let it go, Jake.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of knowing the golden age, knowing like you don't know that you're in the golden age until it's gone. Sean, what was the news on January 31st that made me legitimately like depressed? I'm not kidding when I heard this.
Well, I think, have known that this was going to come for a long time, and it is the sunset of PTCGO, the OG of the Pokemon, online platform. The platform that anybody who's been listening for any amount of time is at least familiar with. Maybe you somehow started on live, and I will say, don't look back. Just keep running forward. You'll never know what you don't have. Ignorance is bliss. But look, they're sunsetting it. Crown Zenith is going to be the last set to be uploaded onto the platform, which has already been done. And then they will not upload any new cards or make any more changes to the platform after this, starting on March 1st. So, Jake.
So, kind of like explaining this a little bit more. When we say like sunset and things like this, when we say, the final expansion of Crown Zenith, we're not saying that on March 1st, 2023, Pokemon Trading Card Game Online is going to shut down and you are never going to be able to play it again. That is not what any of this is saying. That's not what anybody who knows what they're talking about has said. This is basically saying after March 1st, 2023, there will be no things changed with it. Like, it will be stuck in this standard format of Sword and Shield base to Crown Zenith.
All Sword and Shield, basically.
Like, literally just all Sword and Shield. It'll be stuck in that block forever. You'll still be able to play in it. You'll still be able to play in Expanded. Still be able to play in... Can you play in Unlimited? I think you can. Unlimited.
Sure.
Theme decks, the tournaments, if people are joining those tournaments or whatever. It's just like Scarlet and Violet, the base set, Scarlet and Violet, will never go on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. The tool card errata, if you do not remember, Pokemon tool cards are joining their own kind of reclassification they're starting on January 20th in Japan, and then later... Now, when Scarlet and Violet comes out, releases on March 31st, tool cards will have their own classification, not just being item cards. So basically, you're going to play tool cards like you do them now, and it's never going to change. You're never going to be able to play in a current standard format again on PTCGO once, you get past March 1st, 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically March 31st, because like
Well,
the
you
new
get
stuff.
you get a little bit of
Yeah,
time.
but
You
like
get
it
a
doesn't
month
matter.
before. Yeah. Either way, there's not going to be any more updates. It's not going to change. It's basically just going to be stuck. It's
Yep.
going to be stand
Well,
still.
it'll be stuck, and I will say it'll be stuck with the expectation that at some point it will be shut down. We don't know when that date will be.
And who knows if they even do that, right? Because there's people's collections or whatever. That's like, and who knows? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it will probably be a while. They might give people a solid 6 months, a year maybe, of just
Mhm.
keeping the servers live. And you know, to your point, allowing people to maybe they haven't logged in to play Pokemon since the pandemic started, right?
Yeah.
And then when leagues, fingers crossed, and CP and all that stuff comes back, people that have stepped away from the game come back and are like, oh wait, I was gonna go play online, but yeah, you want to give people time to like catch up, transfer all their stuff over to PTCG Live, and not have that lost. But yeah, it's now I think you could start to say like, oh well, this is great because that'll PTCG Live. The hope would be PTCG Live is in a perfect state. But Jake, like you told me like some bug that they were experiencing today on PTCG Live.
There's a new if you see our Twitter account at MetapodTCG, sometimes we will retweet a wonderful individual, just an absolute hero to the Pokemon TCG people. Trust Your Pilot is a dedicated Pokemon trading card game player, but they are basically the reporter of all Pokemon TCG Live bugs, news, updates, things like that. There's a new bug going on at Pokemon TCG Live, a fun new bug. If you haven't seen it yet, the bug is about having multiple Pokemon being in your active spot at once.
It only
It was
appears to be a
introduced
visual bug.
But still, like it came in the January 24th update. Still not. I mean, what are we? February 6th at the time of this recording.
Yeah, I don't.
And the other day, matchmaking was broken. This was back on February 1st, after the new PTCGO news, right? When PTCGO was announced that it was, not going to be updating anymore, the very next day, people were taking hours upon hours to find a match. And then on top of that, it turns out that people were losing ownership of their Scarlet and Violet starter cards in their collections. And it sucks. People, and people are mad too. There's a lot of reviews that people have been leaving on PTCG Live, and on February 6th at 9:30 a.m., PTCG Live was 2.3 out of 5 stars.
Oof.
On the iOS version, where people leave their reviews. PTCGO, meanwhile, sitting at a 4.6 out of 5 on iOS. So it sucks.
I mean, maybe the iOS version is less buggy in some ways. It could be.
I mean, the whole thing is buggy, to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, TLDR, Pokemon definitely needs to get things together for when they no longer are putting new cards onto PTCGO. Because if don't,
if you want to play standard format after the new set releases, you've got two options. Yeah. One of them, you force yourself onto PTCG Live and all that monstrosity, or B, you just start playing tabletop or cam and you just print proxies or build your own decks physically and just play with other people that way.
Jake, speaking of playing with people in person and printing proxies, can I talk about the nonsense deck that I built?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So, I don't know. Did you post this on Twitter, or did you just send this to people in DMs that were
I
curious?
posted the preview on Twitter, and then people who DM'd us, I sent it over to them and told them some of the changes that you had made and why.
Yeah. So I mean, look, this deck is not, highly tested or anything, and take it all with a grain of salt. But the concept, I'm showing it on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. I mean, you can see that. But for those of you who are listening, the concept is a Lugia V-Star deck. I know. Whoa, you're so creative. But it is Lugia V-Star with Radiant Eternatus. So the idea there is that your main, secondary or whatever, your additional attackers are not necessarily the expected ones of Yveltal and Raikou Amazing Rare and all that stuff. No. For this deck, you want to try to understand the matchup that you have, and if you get lucky, use Radiant Eternatus on turn 1 going first to get the 1 or 2 VMAXs into play that you think are going to work best for the matchup. So going over briefly, it's a 4-2 line of Lugia and Lugia V-Star, pretty standard. I know some people think you don't need 4 Lugia, but I really want to start it. And when you don't, it's bad.
Yeah, because it sounds like your other possible starters of Eternatus,
which is
Crobat,
horrible.
Luminion. Yeah, it sounds like that sucks.
Yeah. A lot of the other starters would be very bad, and there are no scoop up nets in the deck. So this deck, I will also preface it, this deck is not meant to be, it's not going to win any big tournaments. I am fully aware of this. Somebody can probably take this and make it 10 times better. But I just decided to go full high roll. If you get unlucky in the first turn or two, hey, that's life. You got 3 Archeops. Now, where the deck gets weird is you have an Amazing Rare Reshiram, which I don't think is too weird, but it's some interesting combinations. But then with Radiant Eternatus, I ended up landing on 4 VMAXs that I really liked. And that was Flying Pikachu VMAX, because that card, Jake, is broken. In this format, that card is nuts. Because think of all of the, basic Pokemon decks running around. You got Lost Box, you've got Reggie's, and when I played this deck, I played against a Lost Box and a Reggie's deck with the Flying Pikachu, and that Flying Pikachu won me the games because it's just that good. The other cards you have Duraludon VMAX, which, I don't think it's a quite perfect deck, but if you're going against a mirror match and you can get your prize, the Pokemon you have on the field down right, then yeah, if they don't have a way, a canceling Cologne or something like that, then that Duraludon VMAX is going to put in work. Outside of that, I threw in a Crobat VMAX, which is a very weird, I know it's very strange, but the reason for that is you do have the ability to get down all the energy requirements, and it can knock out a Mew VMAX because of the darkness type, right? And then it also has the benefit, I also play a Crobat V, so you can use it and evolve it if you don't Radiant Eternatus it. So, it has additional value in its pre-evolution.
And that would be the reason of playing it instead of, Drapion.
Exactly. And then
you give up another prize, but, you get the draw power, to make sure you get your Pokemon, your Archeops in the discard, and your Lugia V-Star and stuff like that. And
it also feels much... if you end up starting a Crobat V in any game, that doesn't feel nearly as bad as starting a Drapion V. And then the last one is Cramorant VMAX, which is really weird. For those of you who don't know, it's got a triple colorless attack. You flip a coin for each energy attached to it. So double turbo would count for 2 coins. And you do 80 times the number of heads that you hit. So yes, double turbo reduces it, but it has the potential.
It's 80.
Yeah, it's 80 damage.
You're going to be doing a lot lot It's either 80 or 60, which is both pretty good.
Yeah, so you have these options of okay, you can just hit crazy numbers, and I just figured hey, why not? There might be better VMAXs out there to throw in with a Radiant Eternatus in this deck. Go for it, rock and roll. This was my binder drop VMAX. It was just the ones I had. But then outside of that, you got a Guru, you got a Luminion, pretty standard stuff in some ways. Most everything else is pretty standard. I think Trekking Shoes is maybe a little bit weird in some Lugia decks, but again, I just chose to go full high roll. So that's in there. Big Parasol is useful for the Duraludon VMAX if you are using that. That way, I don't think canceling Cologne works or something. I don't know. It can get weird. It's heavy on the professor's research because you need to draw cards because there's so much setup. You need to get Archeops in the discard, Lugia V-Star, and Radiant Eternatus all within the first 2 turns. It's stupid. And then the energy split, I think, is pretty standard. The only weird things are like you've got single strike energy because you have a single strike Pokemon in your Duraludon. The heat fire energy in Reshiram, I'm probably not the first one to notice this, but that's a broken combo because Reshiram does 270, but 60 damage to itself. It has 120 HP. So normally it knocks itself out. So you can use it
twice.
Yeah, you could use it 3 times. Because you could use it twice and you're still alive.
That's what I meant.
Yes. And Heat
In
Fire,
my head, I knew what you meant.
Yeah, and Heat Fire also will be useful on Radiant Eternatus who uses fire energy. Anyways. And then Collapse Stadium is just useful to, get a big thing off of your bench that has any damage counters on it that you don't want to deal with. But Jake, that's the deck. I've done lots of explaining. Any questions? Any thoughts?
Any questions? Any thoughts? Yeah. I want, Radiant Eternatus is the best card out of Crown Zenith, right?
Probably. It's the most interesting card, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just but the stuff with it, I don't know if anything's good with it in terms of taking it to a big giant,
like a regional.
Yeah, big giant regional and winning the whole thing with it. But it's a ton of maybe we just haven't figured it out yet. I don't know. But it looks like a ton of fun to play because you have so many different options. I love toolbox type decks of just throwing out different Pokemon at different times. I hate you for playing 2 different arts of boss.
I don't have to.
Here's the thing. I understand if you were I'm going to play 2 Giovannis, 1 full art, 1 regular art, right? Because that makes sense, right? You may not have 2 full arts, but you're playing a Cyrus and a Giovanni.
Is that a Cyrus?
Is that a Cyrus? Who is that guy?
That's a Giovanni.
That's a Giovanni?
Yeah, it's the old Giovanni.
Hold on. I'm looking this up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Maybe it's a Cyrus.
I'm pretty sure.
One can never
that
tell.
blue is a Cyrus. That blue is a Cyrus.
Fine. It's Cyrus.
Don't question me.
Hold on. Let me look at that. Okay, it's F. It's an F regulation mark, so it's probably Cyrus. You right.
Yeah.
You right.
You monster for playing that. But you know who else is a monster, Sean?
Who else?
Everybody playing Lugia at Orlando Regionals, because guess how many were in the top 8?
Was it 6?
6 of the top 8 were Lugia V-Star. Ended up winning the whole thing, going 1-2. 2 kind of different lists. The second one, Isaiah Bradner's list, is a little bit more, I would say, kind of streamlined than others, just playing choosing to put back in the Dunsparce in the list, playing the Yveltal, Raikou, Manaphy, but having a bunch more of multiples like the Lost Vacuum, Choice Belt, things like that. I would say Andrew Hedrick, the person who won, is a pretty interesting list because with some of those 2-ofs, they decided to play other cards instead. So looking at this list, you got the Charizard, Yveltal, Raikou, just like always. This has the 3-2 line of Lugia, so a little bit different than yours, Sean.
Yeah. One less Lugia, I guess. It's not as imperative that you start it or not, I suppose.
No Dunsparce in here, and instead of a 2-2 vacuum choice spell line, they've taken a couple cards out and added a couple cards in. One being Capturing Aroma. Sean, do you remember what this card does?
I mean, of course I don't remember it, because who's ever played this card, Jake? But
Capturing Aroma is an item card that says flip a coin. If heads, search your deck for an evolution Pokemon, reveal it, and put it in your hand. If tails, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. I would say that either way, because heads or tails, you're going to get something out of your deck. And so, with that flip, you can get, Manaphy, a Rangaroo. Like, you have so much flexibility in terms of finding evolution Pokemon or basic Pokemon, because all of your attackers are basics, right? Except for Lugia.
Yeah.
And then, evolutions, you need it for the Wombo combo. That is Summoning Star, V-Star power off Lugia. So a pretty cool card to include in there. Very cheeky, very cute, I would say.
I will say it is interesting because I think they chose to put it in because it's basically a 15th search card that could get them an evolution. Because you think about it, like Quick Ball and Ultra Ball gets you basics. Ultra Ball and Evolution Instance can get you evolutions. But they've maxed out the counts. They've got 444, which is really high, in my opinion.
But that's kind of what you need in this deck.
Yeah,
you need high counts like that.
But I don't know if he did like math where he was just like, I want one more. What other card can do that kind of damage? And I guess Capturing Aroma is probably the best one out there. It's better than Pokeball, maybe.
Here's the thing, too, that I think can combo pretty decently with it. With Quick Ball, you have to discard something from your hand in order to find the Pokemon. From Ultra Ball, you got to discard 2 things out of your hand. So 2/3 of your search options that you've got in just those 3 item cards, Quick Ball, Ultra Ball, Evolution, Incense, require discarding things from your hand. Now, we've saw many times, that's why a Rangaroo, one of the reasons why a Rangaroo is in this deck, we saw many times where you would draw like a new set of 7 cards off Research or 5 cards off of Marnie, and you would have a couple energies in your hand, a couple special energies. Now, once those special energies are gone in Lugia, you can't get them back, so you're kind of on a time clock. A lot of Lugia decks playing like 16 energies or something, but with V-Guard energy, Wash energy, Double Turbo, only having 2 or less in there, kind of puts you on a sticky situation if you have to discard sometimes. When you have a supporter like Irida, right, there's a one of Irida in this list, which I think is like relatively new, I would say. Not only does that give you the option of finding that Capturing Aroma, so then you don't have to discard anything, you can also grab one of your 2 water Pokemon in the deck, Manaphy or Luminion, which are 2 pretty good. I mean, Luminion, even though you're using the Irida for turn, you're able to put another one in your hand if you know that maybe the list that you're playing against, that archetype doesn't necessarily play Marnie or anything like that. You can prep your hand for next turn. Or, you can Manaphy. Also using Luminion for the Aqua return attack, which if you've been playing Lugia, you probably use that a lot, right?
Yeah. I will say too, like
really cool.
Yeah, the Echoing Horn in a Lugia list feels a little different. Like, I think we've seen it in Mew VMAX a lot. Because Mew VMAX has Cramomatics, right? Like, they can go and just get the Echoing Horn if they want.
Yes.
But Lugia doesn't really have that same option, except with Irida now. So yeah, it is interesting to see like a one of like Echoing Horn where you can be like, okay, my Lugia is not going to be hitting, but like 200, 220, 240, somewhere in that range. Same with Radiant Charizard. So, but that Echoing Horn can just throw a 2-prizer right back onto their bench, make it really annoying for them. Yeah, I mean, the deck won the tournament, so it's like it did what it was designed to do.
Yeah, clearly it's doing all right.
But yeah,
it's also cool. Yeah, I mean, it's also cool to have the heat energy in there. You talked about the heat energy earlier in your deck. Also in this one as well, because I mean, you've got 2 Pokemon right here that can directly utilize it. Charizard going up to 180 HP, and then Yveltal going to 130. That 130,
it won't.
Or no, it wouldn't work with that.
But
it wouldn't. It would fill the energy requirement of Yveltal. That's what I was trying to say.
But 180 for Radiant Charizard, it can be. Actually, it's funny. There was a Reggie deck I was watching yesterday, and they had. It doesn't matter with Radiant Charizard. Never mind. Because I was thinking about the Melmetal that does 220 minus 50 for each retreat cost. But Radiant Charizard has 3 retreat cost. It wouldn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the 20 damage matters. I don't know. Does it?
I mean, it could in a couple different situations. So, like, I don't know if Regigigas, some of them are still playing like a one powerful energy or some powerful energies. But like if a Regigigas, if you're facing a Regi deck hypothetically, you go in with a Radiant Charizard because it's a 1/1 prize trade.
Yep.
Right? Your Radiant Charizard has 160. Regigigas would do 150 against you, so that powerful energy puts it to 170. You could put yourself at 180 to block that and be like, okay, either have 2 strong energy or 2 hit KO me. Yeah. Or like boss next turn and use the Aleki or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways. And then also it just makes it harder for Lost Box decks to knock you out. I mean, even though the Cramorant will do double damage, if you get rid of their Cramorants for some reason.
It doesn't do double damage. It ignores weakness and resistance, Cram.
Oh, it does. I didn't know that. So, anyways,
sorry, I don't mean to blow it up like that.
With the Sableye damage counters, though, that was my main point of like the Sableye damage counters will just make it harder to be able to reach like those numbers.
So, obviously, I think Andrew's deck, of all the Lugias I've seen, that was probably the most strange in a good way. Did we want to talk about Isaiah's deck to show, like, just quickly to show, like, what the streamlined version is looking like?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I say streamlined mostly because it has what I would say is like less text in a sense inside of it. But there are a couple cheeky things in here. Like I was saying, having 2 Lost Vacuums and 2 Choice Belts in there. Also playing the Speed Lightning energy, Sean. The Speed Lightning energy not only helping for Raiku's amazing shot, right, but also just giving you a little bit of extra draw power if you do have that Raikou on the field. I feel like Raikou got a lot of airtime in the matches that I saw in, streamed matches. I feel like it got a lot of airtime, whether it was it started in the game or it was just utilized at certain points in the game. So the Speed Lightning energy was a good choice, I feel like, in this Lugia deck.
Yeah, it's interesting. I will say the Lost Vacuum, that card is so good. Lost Vacuum, having played it a decent amount this weekend, like, whew, I
it's
think
almost like you got Field Blower back in format.
It's almost like you have Faba as an item.
Yeah.
That's the amazing part, right? Which is like, back in 2019, there was a supporter called Faba. If you played it, I think you could put, was it 1 card or 2? Might have been
it's one.
Yeah, you could put one.
Yeah, it's just
one
special
item,
energy or tool.
Special energy or tool, but not stadium, right? Interesting.
I can't remember exactly with stadium because I know that Prism Star stadiums I think don't work with Faba.
Yeah,
and it's just like anyways.
But
either way, Faba got to put items into the special energy or tool cards and special energies in the Lost Zone. Yes,
and like I would, getting rid of special energy certainly would be nice, but rotation's going to do that for us. We'll be fine. But like Lost Vacuum is like, it's a legit great card, and given how good the Lost Zone like energy system is with Mirage Gates and all that, like I think that whole system is gonna, in some ways, I think, define the next 6 months of play once rotation hits. And so like, yeah, Lost Vacuum is huge for those decks. So I don't know. I love that card. I think it's great.
I think the inclusion of Dunsparce was a good one. Everybody running around with Raikous and flying Pikachus and Regielekis at certain points. So I think the Dunsparce was a good pick. That little buggy guy. So there, I mean, this one had its own text and its own right inside of it and a little bit of cheeky play, but I would say a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it was crazy too because Isaiah Bradner, John Eng, and Reagan Retzloff, all of those guys were in the top 8 of this tournament, they all are in the same testing group. They all had the same exact list, and they went into top 8 as the 1, 2, and 3 seeds.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So if you want to talk about a good, consistent deck, this was definitely one of them. And it just goes to show how great, like, you know, a good testing group when you put in the work, how it could fare out.
Yeah. I will say it just in general, like I think Lugia for me, like the last couple of regionals or big tournaments that we've talked about, it felt like Lugia didn't necessarily have the results that people expected after the first time that it debuted. I don't know if that's just sort of the format doing its thing of like someday whatever's on top ends up on not bottom, but like ends up getting overtaken and then it just kind of swirls. But at this point, I do think Lugia has had some time to refine the list, understand what really works in the format. And I am not sure I see a very clear contender to take it down from the top rankings until Scarlet and Violet comes out.
Not until Miraidon comes out and that lightning Pokemon just wreaks havoc on Lugia, because it always has to just knock out the poster child Pokemon from the last set.
I mean, I will say Lugia's biggest foe come Scarlet Violet is rotation and losing Aurora energy.
Yeah.
Because that's big
true.
sad.
That is big sad. But Sean, you know what else is not big sad? Other top 8 lists inside of it. What other decks do you want to talk about in here?
I wanted to talk about Nicholas Moffat's Lost Zone Rayquaza, Lost Box with Rayquaza deck. Specifically, a couple of things here. It's if you know Lost Box, you got the Comfies, you got the Colress, you got the Crims and the Sableyes. It's all pretty straightforward. The couple of cards here I think that make this deck particularly interesting. People are not surprised by Rayquaza. I think it's just clearly a good card. So like it can do 320 damage if you need it to by discarding 4 different types of energy, which is not hard to get onto there with 2 Mirage Gates. So that's good. Raikou also just great to have that option to do get a couple of prizes off of like single prizer decks or clean up damage, that kind of stuff. But the main things for me are Ice Cube. So for those of you who maybe, I guess, don't remember when this was like all the craze a month or 2 ago, this Ice Cube has an attack called Block Face, 70 damage. It's 3 energy. But again, you have Mirage Gate. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. Now, I looked at the list and I thought to myself, oh, is this good against Lost Box? No, because Sableye wrecks this Ice Cube. There is no... Yes. Now, you could put a big umbrella on this to protect it, but there is none in this list, so that's not really an option here. I think the Ice Cube is particularly for the... I would assume Reggie matchup, the Reggies, because I don't know what other matchup is all basic that this would feel like kind of an auto win.
Doesn't Wash Energy block Sableye though?
Oh, maybe you're right. Okay, I didn't even look down. You're right. Yeah. So yeah, I think the Ice Cube, this is the tech against the Mirror as well as Reggie's, I would think. So like, and you know, I play a Lost Box deck this weekend. Reggie's was kind of painful. I'm not gonna lie. But that was one card in this list that I thought was interesting. And then there's one other card in this list in particular I thought was interesting, and that's 3 Raihan. Which I don't know. Am I sleeping on how much Raihan is being played in these lists?
I mean, think about Raihan. You have, 2 different amazing rare Pokemon that have 3 different energies each to them. One of them, which is why I think this can make a lot of sense. One of those amazing rares does extra damage the more types of energies you put on top of it. So you had mentioned 4 energies being 320 damage, right? That's a Mirage Gate Raihan attachment.
Yep.
Right? That is completely realistic, I feel like, right now in the Pokemon trading card game to be able to do. And then also it can just fill those energy requirements. With Raihan as well, you can grab any card. You can grab a Mirage Gate. You can grab a specific energy that you need to be able to use. You can grab the Ordinary Rod, Energy Recycler, Scoop Up Net, things like that. This card is so versatile.
Yeah.
You can even, Raihan onto a Sableye, get that psychic energy on, or Raihan onto a Comfade to retreat, but then grab, the Rayquaza or the Raikou to be able to put on the field, and then Mirage Gate on top of it, and maybe attach to be able to get the 3 energies. Like, there's so much flexibility with that card in a deck like this, I feel like. I'm so happy that somebody put multiple copies of Raihan in.
Yeah, and you're gonna, and the fact that there's 3 in here, right? I think most of the time we see like maybe 1 Raihan, but because this deck doesn't have a Lumineon, right? It has no way to search up the Raihan directly.
This deck expects to get knocked out every single turn.
Exactly. Yeah, you're expecting to get it. And when I played a Lost Box deck this weekend, and I lost owned my Raihan multiple times off of like Colress or whatever, and I regretted it every time. Because there was several times when I'm like, the energy's not in the deck anymore, it's in my discard. And I need it. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. I think, again, I don't know how commonplace this is in this deck, but for a Lost Box deck, it's something that my brain hadn't thought about. So
I think to continuously get those strings of attacks, I think it's something that, you should play at least 2, I feel like.
Yeah.
I will say also, can we just show the Mew real quick?
Oh, yes, we can.
Because I want to talk about Aerodactyl, because the 8th place list from Grant Hayes was Mew Aerodactyl, which is my love. I love Aerodactyl. Such a cool card, that Aerodactyl V-Star. But there's a couple interesting things in here that have changed up in Mew that I feel like. Well, one, Mew Judge is going around. That's the new thing. Judge, the supporter. It's the new. I feel like we've seen this variant several times with like Pika Rom, like Pika Judge was a thing at one point. I'm pretty sure it was like playing Power Plant as well.
Yep.
So just crazy. This deck playing a Silene. Silene we've seen before, but now we're seeing again, especially in those longer games with double turbos or power tablets that you need to reach up that little extra in there. You've got the 1/4 Sealstone, of course. You get a POW pad in there. Big Charm helping you out, putting more HP on it, especially for something like a Rayquaza, right? We talked about the Rayquaza hitting 320. That would knock out a Mew VMAX. And so, boom, all you got to do then is just put that on, and I don't think they can attack you unless they use multiple Mirage Gates, which you might be okay with that trade.
Yeah, if you're using that much resource to take that out, because then after that, you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, what do you have left in the tank?
Yeah.
So
you also have Leafy Camo Poncho. Sean, do you remember this?
I don't remember it, but Jake, what does this card do?
It's a item tool card specifically. Whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to the Pokemon V-Star or Pokemon VMAX this card is attached to. And so if you attach a Leafy Poncho to your Mew VMAX or Aerodactyl V-Star, right?
That's the play.
Either one, it cannot get bossed up into the active. It cannot get Serena'd into the active. So that's a big reason why this Leafy Camo Poncho card is in there, because especially with the Aerodactyl V-Star, that's 260. That's pretty easy to hit. And with the Mews, sometimes if you can't use your Psychic Leap or whatever to take knockouts and you got to run away to the bench to a new Mew VMAX, you can hide that Mew in there without it getting bossed up and giving up a bunch of prizes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that Leafy Camo Poncho. It's one of those cards that, like, also, is it new? Is it a Crown Zenith card? I don't think so.
No, it wasn't Crown Zenith. Yep, Silver Tempest. We talked about the card on the podcast in the set review, actually. And this is, I believe it's like first appearance in big top 8s.
I think Aerodactyl V-Star is the perfect partner for this card.
I think it's a pretty good partner, yeah.
Because, like if you are playing against Lugia, right? You go first. You're already winning because you went first, but fine. You go first. You get your Aerodactyl V out, and your opponent is like, "Oh, this is going to be annoying," but you get that. You do your own V-Star power attack. They can't use their abilities. There's almost new universe in which they can attack you the following turn while the V-Star is active, and even if it can, it won't be able to knock you out. So throw that Leafy Poncho on. Retreat this Aerodactyl V-Star out of there. Bada bing, bada boom. It's there for the rest of the game. There will never be an Archeops for your opponent.
Another cool card. We've talked about Lost City being in Mew VMAX before, but I think having multiple Lost Cities in Mew VMAX, I think that's something that I said personally on the pod when we first talked about the Mews including this card. I think Mew VMAX should play multiple Lost Cities. At least even with like Path to the Peak or Collapse Stadium or whatever your other stadium card of choice is. I think Lost City is just that good. There are so many decks that have like that one of card that, you know, bops the Mew VMAX. You know, people play Drapion, right? People have, you know, we just looked at Lugia list that had all those one of attackers, you know, Yveltal, Raikou, stuff like that. You get rid of those. I mean, your opponent can't use them anymore. Sure, they just got 3 prizes off that, but they're not going to be able to use it again. They can't ordinary rot it or whatever. Thornton, even like they can't do any shenanigans. Yeah, it's gone forever in the Lost Zone. So I think that's really cool in this list.
I fully agree with that. Yeah, Lost City, especially with like, if you think about some of the best decks that are out there right now, you have Lugia, and you also have Lost Box, right? And if you think about those decks all have individual attackers that are designed to take one-hit KOs against big things. And as a VMAX deck, you can't afford that, because if it happens twice, you lose. You don't have like other actual attackers in the deck, so you will always be risking 3 prizes in your active spot, basically. And so, yeah, like, you got to get rid of the Yveltal Amazing Race. You got to get rid of the Drapions. You got to get rid of the Radiant Charizards, whatever it might be. Just get them out of here.
Something to give you an edge. But Sean, you know what else can give you an edge in the Pokemon trading card game? The element of surprise.
Okay.
Sean, let's go to, we'll talk about 2 different decks, the final 2 decks probably of the pod. The first one, 10th place, Ian Robb. Ian Robb brought in Palkia V-Star Inteleon. So, Sean, how long has it been since we've talked about a Shady Dealings Inteleon deck?
Oh my gosh. I thought this deck rotated already. What happened? What?
So Palkia has come and gone in this format, you know, with the Articuno, the Wild Freeze Articuno, if you remember that when people were playing. I believe it was like Jake Gearhart and a couple other people were playing that at a specific regional. But again, it was a come and go. And here it is. It has come again. And one of the cards that Ian Robb loved in here was Crabominable V, Sean. And you want to know why Crabominable V was so good?
Please tell me.
Because of something like quick shooting. Crabominable V Destroyer Punch knocks out everything in the format. It's 3 energy attack, water, colorless, does 90 base and plus more. This attack does 60 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon. So that's easily just 120 on 1 quick shooting. And then even more everywhere. So especially when you have something like Goodra, right? Goodra was a very popular deck. Stefan Ivanov took it at the last European event and did very, very well, and it became very, very popular. You can do something like Midnight Shuriken, Aqua Bullet, right? Something to do some sort of spread damage in places. Wild Freeze, right? And then follow up with a Crabominable using like Star Portal or something like that to accelerate those energies onto that and just absolutely wallop and finish off, you know, to make sure that, you know, because some of those decks like maybe Duraludon, Gudra or something. They're playing hyper potions, right? Maybe they don't heal everything off. And so this is a great surprise attacker to give you an edge of your opponent thinking, okay, you know, I did the math, you know, they can't knock me out with the Palkia with all these Pokemon on the bench or whatever because I hyper potioned all but like 30 or 40 damage off. And so you're like, oh, yeah, I'm safe. But then all of a sudden, Crabominable comes in and just wipes you out because the 4 damage counters gives it 240 extra damage for 350 in total.
Oh, yeah.
Or wait, no, 330 in total.
Well, 330 plus the 4 damage counters. So 370.
Oh, yeah, 370 in total. So, I mean, it's just, that is just really, really sweet in my opinion.
Yeah.
Crabominable V, a meme card, getting a lot of spotlight.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out because, like, between that, I think really this Palkia deck, it's 2/2 Palkia. So the Palkia line is relatively light because
it's really just there for
Star Portal.
Like Star Portal. And then, you know, I mean, because there's just as many regular attackers. You know, you have the Block Face Ice Q in here. Yep. You have a Drapion V for your Mew matchup. You've got some Articunos, which really help you out, especially with that emergency jelly that we talked about, that item tool card in the deck. Radiant Greninja in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the Mew matchup, right, which I think at the time, was that one of Palkia's harder matchups because the Mew is just so enormous.
Yes.
And the reason, like now with I say now, like it's that much different, but like with Crabominable V, you can take one big knockout on a Mew from the quick shooting, or maybe you paralyze it with the Articuno, clean it up with the Crabominable, and then you just come in with the Drapion for the next 3 prizes, and it's just that easy. You almost never have to put enough prizes on board where your opponent can beat you in the prize race.
And with Thornton as well, Thornton getting in a top 10 of a regional. If you don't remember what Thornton does, choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So you can easily switch from something like an Articuno to a Crabominable or a, you know, Origin Form Palkia V into an Ice Cube or something of the sort. Or like, Palkia V into Greninja or something, to Moonlight Shuriken or whatever.
Yeah, this is cool. It's definitely, it's a very cool deck, just straight up.
Very cool. Also playing Lost City in here, you know, so Lost City was a cool, I mean, there's a lot of lightning Pokemon running around, so you get rid of that Raikou one time and boom, you're safe. Also Cape of Toughness in here, a card that we don't see too often, I feel like, anymore. Now that Zacian V isn't dominating the format. Cape of Toughness, item tool card, if you do not remember, basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets 50 plus HP except for Pokemon GXs, which we don't talk about anymore in standard. So just 50 Pokemon, 50 HP on the basics.
That's true. Jake, what was the last deck? I think I have a suspicion. Can I click something and you tell me if I'm right?
Yes, it is that one. So there were a couple control decks that were flying around and did really well. We're looking at Byron Isaiah Williams, who got 11th place overall. I know Azul Garcia Griego was 48th as well with this list. And I believe somebody else played this list. There was also another control deck that got top 20, a little bit different. We won't talk about it too much, but it's the Ditto deck for anyone who wants to see.
Deck. Okay. Because the one that is Byron themselves doesn't have the Ditto, I don't think.
No, it does not. But Byron in here playing control. You know, I love seeing control. It usually doesn't do well in the United States, but I'll take a top 15 finish that is not Sin or Wojciech. It is the Yveltal Cry of Destruction deck with a couple other friends inside of it. So Cry of Destruction, if you do not know, 2 colorless attack, discard up to 3 special energy from your opponent's Pokemon. So great, because literally like almost every big giant Pokemon, Lugia, Mew, I mean, they're all playing special energies right now in the format. You've got a couple Eldegoss V for the Eldegoss loop, as we were mentioning earlier. You've got multiple Ice Cube Block Face. We've talked about that Pokemon in there. You've got the Starly and the Bird Keeper. The Starly and the Bird Keeper
I think we were
If you
looking at
do not
different
remember.
lists. I was on the
Were you
Ditto
looking
list.
at the 11th place? I was looking at the 11th place
This
list.
is
I'm sorry.
No. You were looking at the 11th place. I was looking at the 18th place list.
Oh, gotcha.
The 18th place list is the Ditto list.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you looking at the Ditto list?
I was just mentioning that there was also a Ditto control list.
Oh, the Ditto control was the one that I think is the more interesting one, Jake.
Oh, well, then I'll move over there. Jeez, Sean,
Sorry,
we got to
the only reason I'm saying that is because, like, in my opinion, this control list is very similar to Sanders. But this Ditto one is different.
This Ditto one is different. So this one is more of a Cinccino engine, Snorlax Cinccino. So make do Cinccino. If you do not know, discard a card and draw 2. Basically in there, you've got the sudden transformation Ditto 70 HP normal Pokemon. This Pokemon can use the attacks of any basic Pokemon in your discard pile except for Pokemon with a rule box.
Yep.
So from that, Sean, you have a lot of options.
I mean,
Yveltal, Cry of Destruction.
Yep.
Miltank, Route, which you probably want to switch into. Regieleki, you're right. The electromagnetic sonar. Put a trainer card from your discard pile in your hand for 1 colorless energy. You even have the option of Diancie. I don't know how often you would use this. Draw 2 cards.
No,
I don't know. Could help you out.
Maybe
could help you out. There's a Jinx in here. A Jinx from Lost Origin. Sean, I don't know if you've ever seen this card before in your life. Me either. It has the double colorless attack Alluring Dance. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. The new active Pokemon is now confused. There's also a Sandile. Sean, Sandile from Vivid Voltage. You remember that bad set?
Oh my gosh. I mean, why?
4 colorless attack Dredge Up. Discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck.
I like that he went for the Sandile over the Durant. Because Durant does a similar thing for a lot less energy, but this one discards 3 cards, so like maybe.
But Durant is
based on the number of your Durants, right?
Yeah, so you would never. I think you'd.
You're right.
Would you only do 1, or
no,
would you
would never do
none?
one.
You would. Yeah, you would never do 1.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You also have a Morpeko in here.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this Morpeko that was in Rebel Clash before a long time ago, though. 1 colorless energy. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks during your opponent's next turn. That Pokemon can't use that attack. So maybe forcing Lugia to choose a different option in there. And Sean, do you know what Calyrex from Crown Zenith does?
I mean, I read the card earlier, but I'll read it now.
Do you remember that we talked about this card?
I do remember. It vaguely crossed my mind. I think we were like, this could be good in control. I think we literally said that. Because we were like, getting any 2 cards out of your deck is not bad.
It has a 2 colorless attack. This Calyrex, 110 HP basic grass Pokemon. Does 30 damage. Don't really worry about the damage. Not necessary. But the attack effect says you may search your deck for up to 2 cards and then put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. Sean is right. We talked about how, with this card, getting 2 cards is just kind of good. I mean, it's not the best thing in the world, but I think a control deck could utilize it, especially when you have so many one-ofs in this deck.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy. Like, to be frank, I don't necessarily know if I want to like go through the whole strategy of control, but
I will say there's 26 one-ofs in this deck.
Oh my gosh. But
each supporter is one of, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, because you don't need more than that. You have a pal pad, and one of your supporters is Silene. So there you go. You have the pal pad Silene loop.
You've got a couple interesting supporters in here. Like Thornton, we've already talked about Thornton a little bit. Team Yell, Sheer, and Silene, we've seen that time and time again in control decks, especially Sander Wojcik in there. Misfortune Sisters, discarding all item cards you find in the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. So really being able to get rid of those pesky items. And I mean, your typical other cards, Roxanne, Boss. We talked about Birdkeeper, Serena, Flannery, Marnie, and Peonia.
Yeah, like it's interesting. Like this also has a heavy count of Galar Mine, so I think broadly speaking, if you want to kind of understand what this deck tries to do, it just tries to make it really annoying for you, resource-wise, confusing you, paralyzing you, making it so you can't attack, forcing you to discard energy if you're a special energy deck. The interesting thing for me is that it is a control toolbox deck, which I guess every control deck is kind of toolboxy typically, but the Dittos in particular, I don't know if we've really seen a good deck use Ditto.
No, I think this is the first time that we've seen the Ditto pretty much.
Yeah. And so like the nice thing about that is, yeah, you can have all of these cards be a one of and know that if it gets knocked out, you're fine. You basically have 2 more of them if you need that one. Or you have 2 more of any of them. Like the Ditto is just so versatile in this deck because it's like one turn you can be a Morpeko, the next turn you could be an Ice Cube, the next turn you can be a Sanda. Doesn't matter.
And remember with Team Yell's Cheer, even though people usually grab stuff like Silene, Peonia, right, out of their deck, Misfortune Sister, you can also grab a combination of Pokemon as well. So you can grab your Dittos again. You can grab the specific Pokemon if you'd rather use that.
For some reason.
The options are out there because also you don't have to, or I mean, you do need the energy to use each attack. Never mind.
I mean, but point being, like, you know, you have it's actually a high count of energy for a control deck. There's like, what is this? 5, 9 energy in a control deck. I'm like, what's happening here?
I mean, look at the attacks that you do use, you know, for just 1 double turbo or 1 twin, you know, Cry of Destruction, Electromagnetic Radar, King's Instruction, Torment, Alluring Dance. Once you get them stabilized, then you're like dredge up, you know, discarding all those cards and just getting more aggressive in that.
Yep. And I think that's the nice thing about Ditto is you can commit the energy to the Ditto, and then if you get them in a lock of any sort, you don't have to put energy on a different Pokemon. Then you can just put another double turbo, keep going with Sandile's attack. And yeah, it's cool. I really, like, I'm glad you wanted to chat about the Ditto and the control, because of all the rest of the decks, this was the last one that I was like, yes.
You've also got the Milk Tank in there if you'd rather just put a Milk Tank in front and then just sit for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's fine.
At Mew.
You could just put a Milk Tank down and be like, hey, I set up this little robot to draw a card for me every turn. I'm going to go grab lunch. Report when the game is over. Report when you've decked yourself out.
Exactly.
But, Jake, that is Orlando. I guess I was looking at the regional schedule, and I was like...
Yeah, we actually tweeted that, if you do not know. We tweeted the regional schedule for the rest of the year. I mean, North American International Championships are TBD, but it happens between Milwaukee and the upcoming West Coast Regional in June.
And for me, I was like, okay, we're in this format now. Crown Zenith is clearly not going to have a massive impact, but you're just sort of sat there like, okay, this is the format I think we have to live with until the end of March, early April. I feel pretty good about the format, actually. Like, yes, Lugia is just clearly a really good deck, but I think every deck at this point, like, because you have the entirety of 2.5 years of cards, 2+ years worth of cards to like really respond. So it'll be interesting to see how people react, because it is quite a long time to be basically in one format. I think this might be like because technically Crown Zenith is a new format, but like I said, not a lot happens.
It all depends on, like, in my opinion, it really depends on like the base set era. Like when cards first came out, how long did they wait until they like started rotating cards? Did they wait until all of, you know, Gen 1 was done? And they started moving on to like the Neo era, or I don't know how it went.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know technically how long it is, but in the modern Pokemon era, right? Like, this is
the longest that it's been for a while.
Yeah, this is a long time where you really don't have any major shakeups to a format. So it'll be a solid, like, what, 4 months, maybe 4 to 5 months. So,
Oceania International Championships are next weekend. Sean, do you have a pick?
Do I have
what you think's gonna win?
I mean, just seeing this weekend and knowing Sanders not going to be there. I mean, maybe he will. I don't know, but that's a long trip. I kind of want to go. I'm going to go Lugia, but I think Mew has a strong showing because I think the Aussies do like a good Mew deck. That's my gut.
I will say Mew VMAX without the Aerodactyl.
Yeah? You think the Aerodactyl's holding it back?
I don't know if it's holding it back. I sometimes feel like Mew without it is just better.
Yeah.
It's more consistent. You're not as high rolly, but
True. We'll see. So you're going Mew VMAX, I'm going Lugia. Watch it be Lost Box and we're both wrong.
Wouldn't be the first time, but that's the beauty of the Pokemon trading card game. It's always fun to see what happens. And we'll see you next week here on this podcast, Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. I'm Jake. That's Sean. See you later.